Thank you very much.
It's Kaufman is Alive. I look at comic books new and old. Thanks for clicking on the video. Today I'm looking at a new comic book that's covering some old ground. Rogue the Savage Land #1 by Marvel Comics. This came out in January of 2025, but it's covering an older era of X-Men, back when Rogue was in the Savage Land. If you remember the famous Jim Lee cover of Rogue in the same outfit here with Magneto. And Kazar's on that cover too, along with Nick Fury. So we got this great homage cover by Kaare Andrews. This cover is the main reason I wanted to pick this book up. It's just such a great drawing. But the artwork on the interiors too is pretty good. And they pretty much go right in line with the style that Kaare Andrews has got on the cover here, and kind of fits right into that Jim Lee style, that post Jim Lee style 90s X-Men era that this story takes place in. So I like that the cover has the old school Marvel Comics corner panel here. We got the bottom corner panel with Nick Fury. And one thing I noticed, trying to figure out where this fits into continuity, on the title page here, there's actually a glaring error here, which I was really confused trying to read this and figure it out, because it says previously in Uncanny X-Men #247. And I looked it back up, and 247 has nothing to do with Rogue in the Savage Land. It's actually issue 274. So Marvel making a typing error there, getting the numbers backwards. So, and actually this story doesn't actually take place after the events of Uncanny X-Men 274. It actually takes place before, and kind of gets us caught up also into the events of Uncanny X-Men 269, when Rogue battled Ms. Marvel when she was abducted by the Shadow King, if you also remember that famous Jim Lee cover with Rogue battling Ms. Marvel. So this story kind of tells the perspective of everything that happened leading up to X-Men issue 274. And that issue was all told from the narration and perspective of Magneto. And this issue obviously is being all told from the perspective of Rogue. So we got Tim Seeley doing the writing here. Zulema, Scotto, Lavina is on artwork. Rachel Rosenberg doing the colors here. Everybody does a great job on this book. The writing here of Rogue is right in line to what I feel like Gail Simone's doing over on the current Uncanny X-Men books. It's almost like a parody of, a Southern Belle, almost. I could just hear her saying, a long-tailed cat in a room full of rocking chairs with some of this dialogue. But she's telling the story of how she got here in the Savage Land, and how she got basically her uniform kind of all ripped up too. She says a uniform is no place for the Savage Land. It's going to get all ripped up like you've been in a couple of rounds with the Juggernaut, is what she says. So very similar to a drawing in that X-Men #274. Just got, again, just Rogue telling the story here. Eventually we learn that she's actually telling this story to Magneto. Everything that she went through leading up to Magneto meeting her here in the Savage Land, which is what we saw in the previous issues of the Uncanny X-Men. So there's this whole race of people that are coming onto the dry lands, and they all live in the wetlands. And eventually here, Rogue, with help from Zabu, who's Kazar's pet, Zabu lets them know that Kazar needs some help, and we find out that this race of people have come onto the land, and they've abducted Kazar, we learn that there's been environmental changes in the Savage Land, which have caused these beings to come onto the surface here, and they're going to make a sacrifice of Kazar. So we're basically meeting, learning how Kazar, Rogue, Magneto all met up here in the Savage Land in this issue, because we don't really see that back in issue 274 back in 1990. So we're kind of learning how that all happened, and we meet on the very last page here Zaladane, who's the queen of the Savage Land people here, and we learn the origins of her taking over the Savage Land. And back in issue 274, we saw the big battle between Zaladane and Magneto. So we're learning how she took over the Savage Land in this series. So this whole book is just filling us in on everything that set up the previous issues. So it's definitely not a must read or anything, but it's got some great artwork, like I said, that holds up right in line with the Jim Lee style, the 90s style, and the Kaare Andrews cover too. So some nice consistency here in this book. Would fit right into continuity. You know, when this first was coming out, I was intrigued to see where it was going to fit into the X-Men continuity, because I thought it might be branching off of the current Uncanny X-Men. I thought something might have happened in the Raid of Grey Malkin storyline that caused Rogue to revisit the Savage Land with Magneto, but turns out this is actually like a flashback tale. So it's not an Elseworlds. It's not an Elseworlds in continuity like the Ultimate Universe or the Absolute Universe. It's just filling in some gaps in some previous Uncanny X-Men stories. So great cover though, a 5-star cover, I would say. I'd pick it up for that alone. Hopefully they make a poster of this one. So that's all I got for today. Thanks for clicking on the video. I do post daily comic book reviews, so if you like this video, please like and subscribe. I'll see you guys on the next one. Go read comics.